Welcome to Mortgages with Millennials, everybody. I'm Robbie. That's Kristin. Per usual, we are working on getting our guest into the host area, which we're very excited about today. We have Michael Vandi from Addy.ai. Uh, Kristin's been fantastic in helping with some of these guests, so very excited to have him. We'll see if looking if he's in the attendee room. We can bring him in, but no, I don't see him. Well, before we start, let me say thank you very much to Form Free for sponsoring today's show. This is Kristin and I still haven't decided what our December show is going to be. We're thinking maybe a little recap thing, maybe an unaired interview that we did earlier in the year, but there's going to be no sponsor for that because we just wanted to kind of do an annual recap. But for today, Form Free, our final sponsor of the year, very happy that they did a quarterly sponsorship with us. If you haven't checked out their exchange, I feel like it's really cutting edge, especially as Fannie and Freddie are poised to exit conservatorship. Form Free Exchange is the world's first marketplace that matches lenders and borrowers. It delivers like a one-to-one connection, and in conjunction with that, and I know we've talked about it on our show, consumers have complete control of their data, which, Kristin, that could be a great show topic in the future. The mortgage industry has more consumer data than any other industry out there. And that data is going to become so valuable. I've heard people even say companies might pay us for our data going into the future. But something to think about there for future shows. Anyways, I'm talking too much. How are you? Hello.
I'm doing great. I am very excited about today's guest and just entering the holiday season. I got a Christmas tree yesterday, so getting in the spirit. So
Christmas tree
um,
before Thanksgiving.
yeah.
Do you do
Yeah,
Christmas
I want to
music?
maximize the amount of Christmas tree in my house. So
So, and this might be a good place to bring Michael in here in a second. But Kristin, will you play Christmas music before Thanksgiving, or do you wait until
I
after?
already have
Oh,
started yesterday. So tree comes in,
um,
Christmas music comes in.
my
And
dad and my sister, day after Thanksgiving, they go get the tree and they put on Christmas music. Michael, where are you? Christmas before or after Thanksgiving? Where do you come down?
It's it has to be after Thanksgiving.
There you go. All right.
it is appropriate. That is very fair.
Yeah.
But I want the most I can get. So,
I know. Well, I'm still in like the fall holiday mood. I got a little pumpkin.
oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I need a ring light. I normally do these shows by candlelight. It's kind of like a seance. Anyway, uh, Michael, I was thinking we're very excited to have you. I read people's bios all the time and it's kind of pre-canned. Can you introduce yourself and your exposure to AI? I think that's probably a very organic way to go about this. Let the audience know who you are.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Robbie. Thank you, Kristin. Thank you for having me.
Mhm.
So I'm Michael. I'm the founder and CEO of Addy.ai, and we help automate mortgage loan origination for loan officers. So my background is entirely in computer science and AI. I've just been the nerdy kid since I was a kid, started learning how to code when I was 14, studied computer science. And then a couple years ago, I started tinkering with AI and how it could be applied to the mortgage lending industry. So I built a library that could train AI models. And then a large bank reached out and was like, well, can you train a model for our loan officers to help us sync our loan data with our CRM automatically? So we trained a model for them and it performed with 99% accuracy. I was still in school at the time. So once I graduated, I decided to build a company out of it. So brought in some of my friends from school, some AI experts, brought in some advisors and mentors that bring in Mortgage IQ, and we started the company.
Very cool. Very, very. Kristin, go ahead.
And I met Michael through Dave Savage, as you do. And I met him at the MBA, but it was I didn't know anything about Michael. And then we met up and I was instantly like, oh my gosh, you have so much incredible information. You're such a great guy. I'm just really excited to share, what you're doing and also your expertise with this industry. I know you have not you have not been in the industry, so you're coming into this kind of as an outsider in ways, and I think that's really unique in some ways. And I'd be curious just kind of what it's been like, I guess, starting out in the mortgage industry with a lot of value that you're bringing, but not a lot of experience from the mortgage side of things. What's that been like for you?
Yeah. So I would say a lot of people try to come into the mortgage industry and try to T-bone the industry. And that's, we've seen some companies that come in with a lot of tech and just try to implement all the tech in the industry. So my experience has been, well, first of all, get a couple of people who can tell you about the ethos of the industry, who are the major players involved. And so that's why I'm going to conferences like the MBA conference, trying to connect with who are the right people who can be connectors in the industry. So Dave is one of them. So a lot of user interviews, a lot of interviews with homeowners, a lot of interviews with owners of IMBs, a lot of interviews with branch managers, producing managers, top producers, loan officers. And it has been quite welcoming. I think a part of it is just AI being in the minds of everybody. So when you say I'm working on AI and I'm working on AI for loan officers, and you happen to talk to someone who's in mortgage, just as you, Kristin, it lights up. And it so happens that if you have interesting things that you're working on and you have the traction to prove it and you have examples, people are more welcoming to things like that. So it's quite not what I expected. I expected a lot more resistance, but it's been insanely inviting so far.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Well,
the buzzword this year has been AI, AI, AI. So I'm torn because on one hand, I feel like it is very important to talk about. On the other, I'm like, I feel like people are like, oh my God, all I'm hearing about is AI. And there's
Yeah.
this disconnect between I'm hearing about it, and what is it actually doing? I'm wondering from your perspective, where you feel like it is currently for the mortgage industry, where it's being applied versus just kind of used as a selling tactic for a lot of these technology partners out there.
Right. So a lot of times when people say AI, they mean large language models most recently. But AI has actually been in the mortgage industry for decades. Like I was talking to someone at the MBA conference, and they were mentioning, using AI for extraction and compliance in the 90s. So all of these neural networks. And so what has changed is the ability to synthesize like large amounts of data and then spit out text or images or videos with its training data. So what we were doing before was maybe like you have one input, you have a document, and then you want to extract it. A lot of these OCR technologies were popular at the time. Now, what has changed right now is putting a co-pilot in the hands of loan officers. So for instance, you would say when you're talking to a borrower as a loan officer, and then you have to send them a request to send in a document. Now you have to call them up and maybe you ask them to email. Now we have an AI model take care of all of that. And then all you have to do is make sure that you're closing or make sure that you are doing what you do best, which is like originating loads, doing lead generation. All those things are things that can be automated by AI as well. So we're moving to a point where you have a lot of these AI agents that you can give specialized tasks. For instance, every single borrower that we've closed, call them up at the end of the year asking to schedule an annual mortgage review. That's something that most loan officers do, and now they don't have to do it anymore. So those are some of the new capabilities that we're seeing. The existing capabilities like document extraction, those things are getting much better with vision models, but a lot of the new capabilities lie with using LLMs to enhance the process and be more efficient in like reducing loan close times.
so for those who are less familiar with LLMs and what that means for the way that they can utilize them, could you speak to some of the ways that loan officers could use, or first of all, explain what an LLM is, and then ways that loan officers can be using that to increase their productivity, or tools like your own that are useful for loan officers to increase their productivity?
Oh, I have the perfect analogy for this. So an LLM is a large language model. I think it's just ChatGPT at this point. Like everyone here uses ChatGPT. So it's I see you're doing this right now.
My dad's in the audience. He's resisting it. So this might be a good way to get him on board. So keep going with your
Oh
answer.
my God. Yeah, I would like to have a conversation with him and just I have some innovative ways I use ChatGPT. So an LLM is a large language model. And what it does is you give it a bunch of words and then it synthesizes those words. And every time it tries to predict the next word. So it's the algorithm is called the transformer architecture. And all it does is if I say, hello, Kristin, how are you doing? What's the next word? It would be, how are you doing today? How are you doing now? Something like that. So it's a probabilistic engine. Now, when you integrate that into, let's say, the lending industry, you have tons of guidelines. If you are a new mortgage loan originator and you just passed the MLO test, now you have 4,000 pages of guidelines that you have to memorize. And you're expected to be an expert in all of these loan programs. And then you go into work for, let's say, an IMB, and then they also have their own guidelines. Well, how do you synthesize all that information? Well, humans, like top producers that have been in the industry, let's say 4 or 5 years, have come across those guidelines before, and so they know what to do. So if you're a new loan originator, if you dump all of these guidelines in an LLM, it could actually associate the loan scenario that you're looking at and the correct guidelines for it. So we're seeing some innovative tools that do some, guideline searches. If you're looking at a particular loan scenario, you can just ask an LLM whether or not it meets the loan policy and guidelines, and it tells you immediately. It also tells you why that is the case. So it saves a lot of time with guidelines.
Yeah, I bet that's so useful. I was just talking to my dad who just passed his licensing exam again, and that I thought I passed mine maybe it was 5 or so years ago, and I don't remember a single thing on there that was from the regulations and guidelines. Like, you study ahead of the exam and then you forget it all until you need to know it. And at least for me, I have like the worst memory, and so having tools like that really help to support you. But then there's the actual I actually saw something recently that said AI outperformed doctors in creating the right diagnosis. And I think, having that kind of support, it doesn't mean it takes over. It means it provides the support to get to the best answer for your customers. So
Yeah,
that's really interesting.
I mean, you mentioned it surpassing doctors. We had a question in the chat from our friend Audrey. How do the response rates compare between an LO personally scheduling year-end updates versus AI? Do you have any data or anecdotes on this, Michael?
Yeah. So when we first started doing AI agents, so at Carnegie Mellon, we had this professor that was working on evaluating the response rates of AI agents. And then he started the company, and then he stopped working on the company. And the reason was, well, the response rate could get maybe like 90% accurate, and then it wouldn't get 100%. This was 2022. 2024, he restarted the company again because all of the advancements in AI has 10x'd what it could do in 2022. So for instance, I'll answer the question for response rates when personally scheduling year-end updates versus AI. So let's say you have this borrower, their data is in the CRM, you have all of their loan data, and then you call them up, and then you have a script that you use. Dave Savage from Mortgages has a lot of these scripts. Now, if you train an AI model with all of these scripts, and then it knows exactly what it needs to say, it knows about your loan program, it knows about the borrower, and it's perfectly constrained. And then the response times are less than half a second when responding to the other person's message on the phone. We actually have a demo of this on our YouTube channel of doing this similar use case. And the response time is so amazing that it doesn't even look like you're talking to a human. Also, you can actually clone the voice of the originator, so it doesn't even sound like AI anymore. Have you seen the ChatGPT demo of asking it to count from 1 to 50? And then once it gets to 20, it starts panting?
No.
It has emotion to even show like you're exhausted when you're doing something like that. So these models have gone a lot better. And I think the mortgage lending industry is slow to adopt, which can be a good thing and a bad thing. But the good thing is, the slower it is to adopt, the time it adopts it, the technology is at its perfect form. In 2022, it would have been really janky, but in 2024 and now, these AI agents doing scheduling perform a lot better. I think with like 99% end rates in terms of like achieving their end goal, what could happen would maybe like they go to voicemail and then someone doesn't pick up, and then you have to trigger the AI to call again. You still need some human in the loop to monitor the model.
Well, I've seen some stuff out there, when it comes to regulation and compliance, that companies are going to be held liable for whatever their AI bots say. So
Yeah.
it's not necessarily full speed ahead. A lot of it needs to be vetted. And it's not like we can just flip over to it like that. But I do want to keep this practical and positive here today. If we're talking about ways that originators can incorporate AI into their processes, into their everyday lives to enhance their productivity, are there measurable outcomes out there? Are there certain strategies you recommend? What's the best way to get maximum, I guess, ROI on your investment in AI, even if it's free?
Yeah. So I've been asked this question in some other pattern before, and I know it's a question about how do you implement AI without messing things up? Like that's really what you're asking. And in that sense, it's like you have to do a low fidelity implementation, something that doesn't make automated credit decisions. So we're dealing with the asset class. Most Americans have a majority of their net worth in their home equity or in their home. So if you give all that power to the LLM, I like to say, even if it's 99.999% accurate, the one time that it's not accurate, it's going to be a school teacher in Mankato, Texas, that doesn't get approved for a loan because an AI model messed up. So the way you can implement it is, say, take one example of, if an AI messes up in this, is it consumer facing? What are the implications of it? So for instance, it could be as simple as checking whether or not the loan matches the credit policy and then verifying that later, or calling up borrowers asking for missing information. Things like that have very low fidelity, or even using a simple chatbot. I was talking to the Lender Toolkit CEO the other day, and he's like, well, wouldn't it be great to have the AI point out things as you're reviewing the loan instead of having to chat with it? Like those things, like a simple pop-up that comes up. It says, oh, hey, you might want to take a look at this particular guideline for this loan. There's this amazing product that I've seen. It's a rules-based compliance engine called Vesta. And what they do is, like, you don't even have to code. You've heard about it, right? You don't have to code. You can just have all of these rules, and it works in an automated fashion. So what I like to say is, don't have AI making all of the automated credit decisioning. Just have it as a co-pilot for loan officers, and tools like Vesta, tools that I'm working on, tools like Lender Toolkit are working on. I think all of those in conjunction would be a good place to start.
I like the word co-pilot, and I think that's important for everyone to remember, and probably most use cases around AI. Like for me, I'm using it mostly for creative or financial literacy education, or even, for example, I was creating a web page around, like, I wanted to have donors be able to sponsor students, and I was collaboratively talking with ChatGPT around, like, hey, here's an idea I have. What could this look like? What are some ideas? And then I'm like, I like this part. I don't like this part. Now, we're iterating together, and I feel like that is really useful, especially for loan officers who are doing their own marketing, or they're doing, there's a lot of things that, like, you're not going to be the best at it, but by collaborating with AI, you're going to, or ChatGPT or whatever, you're going to be able to get to a good answer together. It's this, like, collaborative kind of relationship.
Yeah, and it can point things out that you don't, that you even miss. And it's a way to, like, exhaustively do something within a search space. So if you look at, like, you're doing a particular task, well, how many of the edge cases can you really think of in that task? Well, AI can, let's say you're brainstorming, it can give you hundreds of more ideas, and then you can synthesize and say, oh, I want to do this, I don't want to do that. If you're doing it on your own, it takes a while for you to come up with things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd love to continue in helping people on this call think about ways that they can better use AI. And I know your tool offers some, some like free support. And is it around I saw something around like uploading a license or a document and it will read information from that. Is that part of the like free suite of tools that you guys offer? Can you explain a little bit around that?
Yeah, we do offer a couple of free tools. So that would be some of the guideline searches. That would also be the document extraction, syncing it with your CRM. And also we do offer getting loan summaries, like advanced loan summaries. So if you look at, let's say, like 1003, so much information on there. You want to synthesize it it's like an LO cover page. I want to synthesize it for the LO immediately. So we offer all of that. Where we see the industry going in the near future would be a lot of AI agents that in a similar fashion where you use, say, Encompass plugins. I think in 5 years, all of the Encompass plugins will just be Encompass agents that you dedicate to do a particular task. And then the loan officer would be sort of like an orchestrator, just having to orchestrate all of these agents and plugins. So to answer your question, yes, we do offer some free tools around reviewing documents, searching guidelines, and also with AI agents that can do all of these automated follow-ups with borrowers.
I'm hoping you can elaborate on that orchestrator thing quickly, because there's a lot of fear out there of
Yeah.
AI going to take my job, or is it going to make us more productive? What is going to happen? And so obviously this is just one man's perspective, yours. How do you view the human interaction or oversight with AI in the mortgage industry, considering it's evolving so rapidly and can feel like it's getting out in front of people and they're like, I'm already left in the past?
Yeah. So the other day I was reading this article from Google that mentioned that 20% of all of the code at Google is being written by AI in some fashion, whether it's like autocomplete or completely jump starting a new project using AI, like creating a framework for it. At our company, around 15% of all the code we write is actually been written by AI. We don't have as many engineers as some large tech company, but we're shipping at a velocity in a similar fashion. So we're also at risk as software engineers of being replaced by AI in some fashion. Now, when I see my role as a software engineer, which I will relate to loan originators, is, well, I'm prompting my team. Right now, my team is, I have my front-end engineer, I have my back-end engineer, I have all of the, and then they're also in turn prompting the AI to do something. Now, what can AI not do? Well, an AI cannot go to post-closing meetings. It cannot have that interact, that relationship with the borrower. An AI cannot show up in person. An AI cannot, anything that has like some in-person element to it. So what we will see with the role of loan originators, it will move on to be, I would say, sort of like a mortgage advisor in a sense, where you're advising the borrower on the biggest purchase that they're going to make in their life. It's going to be sort of like a therapist role in the future. And you're going to focus more on that than, let's say, reviewing applications or looking at hundreds of pages of documents. So the role of the orchestrator would be, well, I am the loan officer and I have all of these different agents that can help me achieve my business. And then all I'm going to do is personally align them. Now that alignment is going to be very hard to do for AI. Like AI is good if it's like specifically suited to one task, but you still always need a human to point it in the right direction. And that's the role that LOs will take.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think seeing where we can continue to evolve ourselves in bringing more and more of the relationship and getting the support. Again, like back to the doctor example, it's more data is better. Like more, more information that's going to help us get to the right decision is better. But But I'm excited to see from a Mortgages with Millennials perspective, like we want more personalization, we want more data for ourselves, but we also are going to want to be able to talk to someone who can, really be the relationship side of this biggest financial decision of our lives. So I think it frees up more space for that to happen more effectively. So yeah.
I definitely was looking at comments.
What was that?
I was just looking at the question from Audrey.
Would you like to answer it?
I'd like to say Audrey's on a roll here, since
and we should say that not everybody can see it. She sent it directly.
Oh, I'll post this in for everybody to see.
So
Okay.
she wants to know if AI models are able to handle scenarios that don't fit agency guidelines, saying a lot of her business is private money or non-QM.
Yeah. So if you have a way to give the AI model, to give the AI model the data, it could actually be a video of you talking about the non-QM loan product, or uploading past loans, like context from past loans that you have closed, and then it would learn from that. Most people's exposure is ChatGPT, which doesn't have organizational data. So ChatGPT cannot do that. But if you have an AI model trained just for your company, it can certainly do that. And what I think will happen is we're going to have millions and millions of these custom models that are in-house. So think of them as like custom ChatGPTs, but only with the private data that you have and no one else has, and only you and your team have access to it. That's where I see things going. And certainly AI models can handle that if you train it with the data.
And we had one other question from JR, who's asking, when it comes to looking at these loan guidelines or specific loan scenarios, is it better with a large language model or a chat GPT type thing? Or maybe it's your enterprise's own software. Where do you come down on that?
Yeah. Well, if you're sending borrower data to ChatGPT, ChatGPT is a closed source company, and then you can leak social security numbers, things like that, sending that over to ChatGPT. So I think definitively my answer to that would just be having a siloed, like private language model. So in this day and age, you can create a ChatGPT with the exact same configurations of ChatGPT and how powerful ChatGPT is just for your organization. That's how far we've come.
So I think, following that one step further, are there examples you can provide where you've seen AI used really well in the mortgage industry to significantly improve productivity or close rates or data harvesting? Or, it's kind of an open-ended question, but places that you've seen really nice use cases in mortgage already.
Oh my God, I have the perfect example for this. Two brothers out of Texas. So I'm going to bleep out the name of the company. So there are two brothers out of Texas. They run this lending company, only them. And they have improved their loan close times. They're using our platform by, I think, around 80%. That's how much. They don't have any, so they're both originators. They're both doing all of the loan volume. And what they do is they think of new use cases for us. So our team, because we are small, we can have like customer retention. They can think of use cases and then tell us. And then we build it in 2 days, and then we send it over to them. So recently what we just did was they use something called Lending Automator. So it's an LOS. We just integrated all of their LOS data. And then now we can just instantly create loan summaries for them, so they know exactly what information like the LO needs immediately. So those two brothers in Texas are doing the volume of, I would say, 20 originators right now. And that's just because they embraced AI, and not only embracing it, but because we do weekly meetings with them. So every week we have like a 15-minute synchronization session where we ask them, well, hey, what's the next thing that we could do that could enhance your process? So they tell us, and then the next week we build it, and then we rinse and repeat. And we've been doing this for about 6 months now. And those guys are actually, I would say, the model for where things will get in the future. Maybe they want to keep it a little bit secret for now, but yeah.
I was going to say, can you, to the extent that you can, like what are some of the best practices that they have taken to go to an 80% increase in their efficiency or you know, whatever statistic you just shared, that like what are some of the steps that others can take to follow in that kind of blueprint?
Yeah. So the first thing we did with them was we looked at their origination process. And then we said, well, what are some of how can we bring the tools to, have you seen this? There's this tool called Zapier.
Mhm.
Yeah. And it connects everything together. So for instance, when you're talking to a borrower for some loan scenario, so they send you an email or you do a phone call with them, or they send you some data they upload data on the POS. It's all in different places. And you're like, well, if you have an AI model trying to make sense of that, all of that data is in different places. So we were like, well, how can we bring emails, documents, phone calls, everything pertaining to that loan in one place? So that's the first thing we built for them. So you can just search a particular loan by the address, and it will pull up all of the documents that have ever been passed around for that loan within the company, all of the emails, all of the phone calls, everything in one place. And then we just feed all of that into the model. So transcripts of the phone calls, all of the context of the email, we feed that into the private model, and then have that model answer questions about that loan. So that, I think, was the biggest thing that we did, instead of manually having to input all of the data one by one.
So then they can ask the model, like, hey, have we ever done this? Or, do we have this on this person? Like, ask specific questions.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So, and I should remind people that AI is not perfect. It's advancing super rapidly. I typed into ChatGPT while you were talking, Michael. I said 2 brothers originating mortgages in Texas, because you didn't want to give the name, but I was going to try to. And ChatGPT came back and said, Fairway Independent Mortgage, Steve Jacobson and his brother Randy or something. I'm like, I think that's the wrong answer. So we had a previous guest on here, Kristin and I did, where they made the example they used was AI at this point is kind of like a parrot. Like it'll take in everything it hears and it'll just spit it back out without necessarily knowing what it's saying. You feel like that's the right way to view? Like you got to kind of fact check it a little bit. You still got to kind of work it. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. If AI is perfect, I was talking to Kristin the other day, it's like, it's perfect if you are already a subject matter expert in the thing, and then you can get to know when it's wrong. It's like, oh, that is clearly wrong. I'm not taking your answer on that at all. But if you're not a subject matter expert on it and then trusting it 100%, that's why there are evaluations that you have to do. So let's say you have the model spit out a particular response, and then you ask another model, is this response correct? And that model will say no. Now, the way big labs like OpenAI are solving this is they are bringing reasoning models to it. So a reasoning model will answer a question, and then it will ask itself, hey, was this answer to this question correct? And then it would pull up, like, what are some of the things that would make this not correct? And then goes through every single one of them. So a reasoning model on ChatGPT, like the 4.0, I'm curious to see what answer it would give, but it would take a lot longer to spit out the response because it's checking itself against many different sources. And then the ability to connect it to the internet. I would say Google would be much more accurate than ChatGPT. So a combination of ChatGPT and Google all connected together increases accuracy as well.
Yeah, and actually Google's you've seen it start to roll out AI responses at the top, which I really enjoy versus me trying to figure out what link is there. I do want to talk Addy a little bit. Can you explain to the audience what you're doing? Maybe there's some people in the audience that could really benefit from what you're doing.
All right. So right now we are operating as an AI lab for the mortgage industry. So we come in with a lot of AI expertise. I've been doing AI my whole life. The people on my team have been doing AI their whole life as well. And then we have experts that have been in the mortgage lending industry for 30 plus years that bring in the mortgage IQ. So what we try to do is So how I got started in the business is I worked as a consultant with the bank and the lending company, and then they told us all the things that they needed to do. And then because we could build it fast, we built it for them, and then we put it in production. So we take in um, a lender, and then we say, well, what are all of the bottlenecks in your process, and which ones can we fix? So it would be say, well, all of our data is everywhere. We want to bring it together. So we built something that brings it together. So we have an enterprise platform that brings emails, documents, calls, everything for the loan in one place. You can upload your loan guidelines on there, and then it could sort of act as a co-pilot for your loan originators. You can schedule particular AI agents to do work like automating follow-ups with borrowers. And then you can also review some of the documents as well. I think our superpower is because we operate as an AI lab, we can take in a company and then we build custom solutions for them.
Have you seen common trends? Kristin, please get the next question of this. I'm sorry, I feel like I've been monopolizing
No.
time, but
I'm just so fascinated. That's all I was going to say is like, this is really exciting to be, at this kind of pivotal time. So continue, Robbie.
yeah, and I'm wondering, Michael, have you seen trends among companies that have come to you where it's like, hey, probably most mortgage companies could be doing blank a lot better. Hey, you should probably look at this in your processes. Where like, any common denominators?
One of the things I don't like about the mortgage lending industry is like everyone tries to complicate their process and everyone does things differently. But if you zoom out, it's almost entirely the same thing. Everyone just like, I like to use different tools. Oh, no. I always do this. I always do this the same way. And I'm like, well, if we tweak it a little bit, it could make things a little bit faster. So to your question, this is the biggest problem that we have right now is everyone uses different tools. Everyone has a different process. But if you zoom out, it's the exact same thing. Everything just flows. So your question about the tools that people use and then how to streamline some of those tools, I would say the patterns and trends that we have seen is maybe some companies use Sonar, for instance, as a POS. Sonar is this new POS that they have AI integrated into it. So most of the trends that we're seeing is like some people are saying, well, if I have this particular LOS that I've been using for a really long time, how can you integrate into it? So most of what we're doing now is just integrating with all of these different tools, and it's a lot of work. It's going to take us a really long time. There are a million LOSs. There are a million POSs. It's going to take a lot of work for us to integrate into all of those. And there's a trend in some of these LOSs using AI to advance their processes, but I think what we have to do is maybe someone else can go ahead and build this. But if you can find a way to connect all of these lending systems together, that would make our job a lot easier. And so everything works as one cohesive unit.
I think that is a challenge of the age. I mean, this is also a problem, not only in the mortgage industry, which I feel like been talking about since I've been in it, but also in financial resources in general. I mean, everything is so all over the place. And so as a consumer coming in, especially coming into mortgage, but anywhere in the financial spectrum, it's just things are all over. And so you're trying to go here for this part of your financial journey and here for this. And I would love to see some way that we can start to pull things together. Maybe that's something First Home IQ can start to venture down in the future.
Yeah.
But
I'm curious, Robbie, what are some of the AI tools that you use other than ChatGPT?
I'm not there. Kristin's your girl for asking that question because last time I met with her, she's like, I pull these scripts and then I run them through the humanizer overlay and then I run them through this filter. I'm just like I'm scratching the surface. I'll connect with you offline. I'd love to have you on my audio podcast to talk more about this, but I could use some tips. Kristin is the one. Kristin, tell the people.
Which is
Do it.
hilarious. Michael knows I'm at the very beginning of understanding how to leverage AI. Whenever I met with Michael, I've used ChatGPT and like others like it for a while, but it's the collaboration. I talk to it a lot. I'm like, hey, I have this idea. What do you think? Blah, blah, blah. You know, we have a conversation. That's how I've used it until now. And then Michael introduced me to Notebook LM, and I haven't spent enough time around it. I feel like I need to just really dedicate some time where I could train my own model to be able to, you know, ask it questions related to, I want to have it collaborate with creating financial literacy feedback from our courses. And then I did use it to create some games for teachers to use for teacher resources and lesson plans and stuff. But I want to take it a step further and have it actually, because I did figure out how to write some code with it. And so I figured out how to like draw a card. So I want to create like a card deck with, you know, financial literacy games, but that's very just for fun. So.
Yeah, Michael, so you recommended Notebook LM to Kristin, ChatGPT, people obviously know. What are the other programs and their uses that you feel like are, you know, relatively adoptable, especially for
That's a
an
great
industry that's
question.
older and not technologically the most advanced?
Yeah. Well, I think eventually Google will build all of these AI because they're just so far ahead, and then they'll put it into Google Workspace as they're slowly doing it. So that will come. Now, what we don't know yet is, can Google do it fast enough for some of all these like small players to do? So there's a meeting recorder that someone put in the notes order. Very soon, Google will just put a meeting recorder in Google Meets, and then that will be the end of Otter. So what are some of the tools that I use? I'm going to say Notebook LM for one. What I like about Notebook LM is you can give it a document like a PDF, and it can make a podcast out of that PDF of like two speakers speaking. And then it just helps you understand that information a lot better. If you have someone with like ADHD or dyslexia, it could really help you understand the topic better. So that's for one. And then I also use Gemini. Gemini is Google's own chat bot. I use it a lot. For coding in our company, we use this tool called GitHub Copilot. We use this tool called Cursor. It's the one that about 15% of our code has been written by AI. We also use a lot of meeting recorders, and then we connect those meeting recorders with our CRM. So at the end, it just, instead of sending us an email summary, it just sends that over to the CRM immediately. So I'm just living in my CRM now. When I open my CRM, all of the sales meetings that have happened, I have every context, like all of it right there. And I don't need to like switch between all these different tools. So definitely ChatGPT and Gemini and Notebook LM, they're the state of the art right now. But I'm certainly looking at a few others. Mostly for coding, I have a lot more. There's Bolt.new, which is a way to generate user interfaces. Vercel has this thing called v0.dev, which I think is going to be the future of software engineering in general. Because every single piece of software has been like software interface. Like for now, we're in the Zoom call, and we have 4 squares. And that's because a programmer has programmed, like when there are 4 people, use 4 squares. Now, what Vercel and V0 is doing, they are letting the AI create the user interface in real time. So it says there are going to be people in the call. We don't know how many people in the call, but when they join, think of a way to make a user interface for them. So like just-in-time user interfaces. And it's going to help models, because when you ask ChatGPT a question, it just returns text, and it's hard to synthesize a text. And you're like, well, this could probably be better if it was a chart or a graph. So it could just generate that user interface in real time. That I think is going to be one of the things that will happen in the future that I'm really excited about.
This is very exciting. And I would recommend for anyone who is just wanting to learn more, there's so many good YouTube videos out there that can describe, you know, don't be afraid of getting started. It's all I'm saying. Like when I was learning and am learning different ways to leverage ChatGPT, for instance, there's so many videos that are like 10 unique ways to leverage ChatGPT. And you can just follow those and learn more. Robbie, do you want to share a market update before we close?
No, not really.
Oh,
So
great.
yeah, I'm fine. I was gonna say, don't plan your business based on where you think rates are going. Maybe, ask ChatGPT where rates are going. Maybe it'll give you an interesting answer. But for all the people that thought, like I speak at conferences and my dad and I do a thing where we say, raise your hand, who thinks rates are going to be higher in the year, same, lower. Everybody, it was lower. And I was like, we've seen them tick back up. Hope is not a strategy. The Federal Reserve is expected to slow its easing campaign. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Trump's cabinet picks as that continues to take shape, and what sort of he talked about adding tariffs today, what sort of inflationary impact that will have. Regardless, wake up, grind. That's work hard. That's the way to keep origination volume flowing. Try to keep it short because we are out of time. Michael, I feel like we could talk to you forever. And for the people out there thinking AI is going to take their jobs, be like me and steal catalytic converters on the side, and it'll never be able to do that. You'll be fine. But like I said, I'd love to have you on some other stuff with us. Big thank you to Form Free, and this was fantastic. Kristin, any final words?
No, thank you so much, Michael. This has been so interesting, and I would encourage everyone to, again, continue to explore this. Reach out to Michael if you have questions. And Michael, thank you for being the AI lab for the industry, and best of luck as we continue.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. This was fun. Let's do it again.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
All right, bye.
Bye, everyone.